Well, my friends, today we're going to talk about the sequels again. Or rather, about how controversial they are. This topic will probably never let go of us and all the other fans who care about the Star Wars universe. And the reason we can't let this topic go is because from time to time, various people involved in their creation make loud statements that are rapidly spreading across the network and cause a storm of discussions. For example, 4 people said some interesting things the other day. This is the director of the 8th episode, Rian Johnson, who for the first time confessed to worries about criticism and at the same time confirmed the cancellation of his trilogy, as well as 3 Skywalkers. Well, like 3. 2 full-fledged Skywalkers and 1 from a Facebook marketplace. Luke, Anakin, and Rey, or Mark Hamill, Hayden Christensen, and Daisy Ridley, who gave interviews and they made the fans angry, laugh, and cry. One said that the director of the 7th episode, J.J. Abrams, deliberately retconned the characters of the original trilogy. The second laughed at the question about Kylo Ren and ignored it, and the third revealed Lucasfilm's plans for film New Jedi Order and said that work on it continued after a long break. Insiders also report that Disney is very afraid of the failure of the project and therefore redo it for the 100th time. Anyway, the last couple of months have been kind of bad for sequels considering how many popular people have expressed ambiguity about them. In short, in this video we will share with you the latest Star Wars news and make your experience the full range of the aforementioned emotions. And if you like Star Wars and you want to stay up to date with all the most important and interesting things, then subscribe to our channel. Thank you all in advance. Before we go through the Skywalkers, let's talk about what the director of the 8th episode, Rian Johnson, who is also responsible for the collapse of The Last Jedi, said so frankly. Despite the fact that his movie brought Disney more than $1 billion, Johnson personally worried about the criticism in his address. However, the company was so confident in the success of his venture that even before the release of the film, they entrusted him with the development of a new trilogy. After the release of the film, Johnson faced both box office success and a strong fan reaction. He said that love and aggression in the fan environment are 2 sides of the same feeling, but admitted that he experienced criticism personally. And although Lucasfilm announced Johnson's Star Wars trilogy in 2017, over time it became clear that its development had stalled. There had been no news for a long time. The company did not announce the cancellation or continuation of work, but everyone understood that the trilogy would no longer be released since Johnson was completely immersed in the development of his Knives Out franchise. The director also remained silent and tried not to comment on the situation, and if he was cornered by journalists, he simply replied dryly that it seemed to be working and everything was fine. By the way, remember this moment and transfer it to all the same directors currently who are also silent and do not comment on the status of their projects. In an interview, the director explained that creative freedom is very important to him, and working on The Last Jedi had that, but after the premiere he realized that there is no freedom when it comes to famous legacy franchises. In his opinion, any large-scale project requires concentration and does not tolerate external pressure. He understands that the creation of a massive trilogy after the negative reaction of fans to his decisions in the 8th episode will again squeeze him into a framework that he will not be able to comply with. In other words, that's it. The new trilogy from Rian Johnson has been cancelled and will never be released. But now Lucasfilm are working on another trilogy from Simon Kinberg. Everything seems to be progressing well there, and they have high hopes for it. We hope that this trilogy will take into account the mistakes of previous films and become, if not just good, then at least okay. And so, after Johnson decided to confess in December, actor Mark Hamill went on and added fuel to the fire. As we know, the actor playing Luke Skywalker was unhappy with the way his character was shown in the sequel trilogy, and especially in The Last Jedi. For several years now, Hamill has been talking about new, strange moments from behind the scenes with a certain frequency. While filming was going on, the actor kept arguing with Rian Johnson and disagreed with his decisions, but then he remembered how much he was paid and did what he was asked to do. In short, fans thought for a long time that Rian Johnson was such a scoundrel. He took and hacked all the beginnings of the 7th episode. But Hamill in a recent interview also jabbed J.J. Abrams, who shot this very 7th episode. Hamill said he asked Abrams to show Luke, Han, and Leia reuniting in The Force Awakens, even though it wasn't in the script. Mark considered this idea logical and correct in relation to the plot and the fans, because everyone went to the cinemas just to meet the good old heroes of the original trilogy. But Abrams refused, and he explained it quite unconvincingly. Here's what Hamill says about it. I went up to him and said, hey, show the meeting of the old heroes for at least 30 seconds. They just have to throw a party after all these years. But JJ replied something like, that's great, but Mark, this movie is not about Luke, Han, or Leia. So, alas, said Mark. Thus, J.J. Abrams initially placed Rey, Finn, and Poe higher than the other heroes of the original trilogy, despite the expectations of fans. And, you know, the sequel doesn't always have to be based only on the old characters, that's true, but in the case of Luke, Han, and Leia, the director really had to show their reunion, which was pretty obvious. The sequels were shot not for a new audience, but for the oldies, and was supposed to serve as a bridge between two generations of fans. But they turned the old heroes into a disgrace, and they didn't present the new ones so that we could empathize with them and believe in their personal tragedy. And the saddest thing is that in the 8th and 9th episodes, it was not possible to show the meeting of the famous trio due to the death of Carrie Fisher, who played Princess Leia, as well as due to the too high financial demands from Harrison Ford, which were the main reason for Han's death in The Force Awakens. As you can see, none of the directors of the new trilogy respected the fans and the legacy that Lucas entrusted to them, so what respect can we show them? But Lucasfilm showed the reunion of the characters of the original trilogy in new books and comics several times so that they could somehow compensate for their failure in the past. So for the team of our channel, the only correct sequels were and still are the games about Kyle Katarn, Dark Forces, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Academy, and of course the great book series about Thrawn from Timothy Zahn. Although to be fair, most of the new books and comics based on the Disney canon are also quite interesting, and most importantly, they show Luke, Han, and Leia as they should be. Well, we're waiting for Mark Hamill to make some more damning statements over the next 10 years, and we think he'll have enough time to piece in who else did something bad to the authors of the sequels. But not only Hamill makes the fans angry, around the same time Hayden Christensen provoked a strong reaction with one short answer to a question about Kylo Ren. During a recent Fan Expo NOLA event, the performer of the role of Anakin was asked what advice he would give his on-screen grandson. The actor answered quite briefly, I have no idea. Next question. Some fans felt that Hayden was deliberately avoiding the controversial topic of sequels in order not to speak ill of the trilogy and spoil relations with Disney. Another part suspects that he was supposed to get a role in the cancelled movie The Hunt for Ben Solo, and therefore avoided answering, but laughed because he understood why this question was asked. And although his generally neutral response caused a storm of discussion, we don't see anything special about it. Most likely Hayden just doesn't give a damn, and he really doesn't want to touch on this topic. He has never talked badly about the sequel trilogy, but judging by his interest in the Star Wars universe, he really doesn't like that trilogy. But not so much that he's like Mark Hamill going to talk about it right and left. By the way, he recently named his favorite Star Wars movie of the Disney era, and oddly enough, it's Rogue One. Christensen respects the company for pulling him out of the bottom of his acting career and giving him the opportunity to play Anakin in new projects, and now his priority is the role in the second season of Ahsoka, which he has been working on for 3 months. Returning to the series will be his longest screen stint since Revenge of the Sith, so he doesn't really care about Kylo Ren. But the fact that he laughed at the mention of low-budget Darth Vader is certainly funny. And there was also a seemingly small event, but which completely reverses the current policy of Disney regarding Star Wars. There's a cool theme park called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is a large-scale theme park in Disneyland, California and Walt Disney World in Florida, which opened in 2019. It completely immerses visitors in the atmosphere of Star Wars on the planet Batuu, offering interactive attractions, themed restaurants and shops, including the opportunity to pilot the Millennium Falcon. In fact, Galaxy's Edge is part of the new canon as it works to immerse visitors in the existing events of the saga. But most importantly, over the years, this theme park has been filled with characters, decorations, and quests exclusively based on the sequel trilogy. This was the principled position of Disney. They wanted to promote only their own Star Wars through this, and not use the heroes of the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. However, there has been a shift recently. Starting on April 29th, 2021, the Galaxy Edge will receive an update in the form of famous characters from other eras of the universe, as well as new entertainment related to them. And at first glance, it seems like nothing special, but in fact, Disney went against their principles and literally admitted that the sequel trilogy could not find recognition and popularity among the mass audience. Few people want to go to the park to see Rey, but everyone will want to see Vader, the Mandalorian, or Luke Skywalker. But as for low-budget Skywalker Daisy Ridley, who played Rey, she announced a continuation of work on the new Jedi Order, a direct sequel to the 9th episode, and this time the actress was more optimistic. Daisy said that the work on the film continues despite the rumors and is moving at a good pace. The development is still in the planning stage. Moreover, the actress will not only play the main role but also act as one of the producers, which means she has an influence on the plot and the overall picture of the project. As we know, the premiere of the new Jedi Order was supposed to take place in December 2025, but due to internal problems, the project was postponed indefinitely. The film changed several directors, screenwriters, producers, and got into a real production hell. But Daisy Ridley did not say whether Charmin Obaid will remain as director, because if she does, the film is definitely doomed to failure. The only hope for her replacement is that she herself, like other directors, has gone into the shadows and has not appeared in the information field for a long time, which means there is a possibility that she was fired, and a new, more competent and experienced director will be announced closer to the announcement. Insiders say that the production hell in the development of the new Jedi Order is directly related to the uncertainty in the leadership of Lucasfilm and their literally animalistic fear of repeating the failure of the sequel trilogy. The company is in no better position and understands the negative attitude of fans towards the project, despite the fact that it has not yet been released, and therefore they are not ready to disclose the details until they are 100% sure that it will not sink into the brown ocean like, for example, The Acolyte. But at the same time, they want the same billion-dollar box office receipts as The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi did. In other words, they fell into a trap from which there is no way out. And that concludes January 2026 with its full plethora of statements about sequels. Write what you think in the comments, although it seems to us that we already know your opinion. If the video was interesting to you, subscribe to the channel and like it. Thank you all very much for watching, for your interest, and for your attention. May the Force be with you.